I'm going to pivot to what I was actually tasked to do this morning now, which is introduce our keynote speaker, Eric Smith. So that's my privilege to be able to do that. In the materials we sent out in advance of the conference, on the conference page, is Eric's bio, and it's an impressive bio, so I encourage everyone to read it if you haven't already. I am not going to read it aloud for you now. What I will do is say a little bit about why we asked Eric to be here today to join us. Eric is the executive director for the University of Arizona Center for Innovation. He has extensive experience as an entrepreneur with moving innovation into the marketplace and with teaching lean startup methodology and customer discovery. Throughout my time working with and learning from Eric, I've come to expect a few things. He's nervous. Thoughtful questions, positive affirmation, and usually a joke, right? So, folks, Eric Smith.
Wow. Check, check. How we doing? Check, check. Oh, hey, we got it. Okay. So as you can tell, in the next hour and a half, you're going to be sorely disappointed, but thank you for talking me up, Josh. So once again, I am Eric Smith. I'm the Executive Director of the University of Arizona Center for Innovation. I'm also a very, very proud board member of the Tucson JCC. All right, yes. Let's see how many times I can get you to clap for the Tucson JCC in the next hour and a half. Okay, it's twice already, and I've been on for 30 seconds. So we're going to do something a little bit different today. So my world is entrepreneurship. I'm going to talk a little bit about what we do at our startup incubator and why it's going to apply to you as JCC professionals. But before I do, I have to figure out how exciting you're going to be. This is the last day of the conference. It's early in the morning, and anybody that's heard me speak early in the morning knows that I like to quiz the audience on one thing. So please raise your hand if you've had at least 1 cup of coffee, tea, energy drink, whatever gets you going. Okay, hold on. Keep them up. Keep your hand up if you've had at least 2. Okay. Oh, no, it'll get fun, trust me. Keep your hand up if you've had at least 3. Okay. At least 4. They're all at the same table? Okay, hold on. Wait. We're not done yet. At least 5. 5. 6? My goodness. Okay. I expect either the most amount of questions from that gentleman over there or a heart attack. One of the two things. Well, thank you. So I'm going to try to make this as interactive as possible. But before I do, why am I standing up here? So typically I'm giving presentations, marketing kind of presentations about my operation. Today, I'm going to try to teach a little bit of something. So I always like to try to explain why you're sitting here listening to me at 10 o'clock in the morning. So I started my career actually at the Tucson JCC. I worked there for 9 years, ran the middle school summer camp, the after-school stuff I was engaged with as well. And from there, I took all these business degrees that I had captured while I was at the JCC, and I decided to go work for nobody. I started my own company. So I had a company for, 7 years. I sold that company. I think I was pretty lucky because I got a big ego about it, and then I tried a whole bunch of tech startups, and I failed at every single one of them, right? So I would fundraise investors' money, I would hire people, and then we'd fail. And then I'd do it again. And for some reason, investors kept putting money into the companies that I was trying to run. Not a single one of those companies was a success. And so at the time, I thought, well, maybe I should stop doing this and I should go work for somebody. So I did. I went to the University of Arizona. So I work for Tech Launch Arizona. It's the unit of the university responsible for the commercialization of technologies at the U of A. So all the researchers inventing really cool things, they can either publish or they can take that and allow the university to commercialize it. So if they're inventing a new drug or medical device or something of that nature, our job was to put that in the marketplace. And what I did was I created startup companies out of those. So the best example that I can give from that time in my life is Google is the result of technology transfer out of Stanford. If you drink Gatorade, that is the result of technology transfer out of the University of Florida. So we did things like that. Did that for a number of years, and now I'm here at the University of Arizona Center for Innovation. So you'll have to excuse me because, again, I'm normally a markety kind of gimmicky guy. So I'm going to give you a bit of context about UACI, as we refer to it, and why we're going to use some of what we do with our startups at the incubator to run through some exercises here this morning. So we serve as the scalable science and technology startup incubator for the University of Arizona. So we serve startup companies. Sometimes they come from the university, sometimes they come from the community. In fact, we have 78 startup companies, and they're located all around the world. The way that we do that is through a program. So we run a tech park also, mind you. We have 1,300 acres and 2 million square feet of space. A lot of our operation is to rent or lease that to large tech companies, but for the startup companies, we lease them space, but more importantly, we serve them with a program, and that's kind of gonna be the basis for what we're doing here. We take our startups through a continuum of education activities. It's 27 major buckets of work. On average, these companies are with us for 2 years. And the typical profile of the company that we're serving, is kind of like this. They're working on something new or novel. They need to fundraise a bunch of money. They need to validate the technology. They're looking for some kind of hockey stick revenue projection, and then they need to exit, usually in about 5 years. If it's in the life sciences, so new drugs, therapeutics, things like that, maybe closer to 10 years. We also have a bunch of people. That's what executed. Mind you, with 78 companies, we're working on this type of programming 78 different ways. They take a baseline on this program when they come in. What do we know? What are we working on? What are we done with? So we know what we need to teach them, what we need to hold them accountable for, and how we can get them over the finish line. It's the people that really do that. So I get to stand up and talk all the time, but we have a full staff of people that actually do the work that we're going to be doing this morning. We have mentors and residents that help them put it all together. We have core functional subject matter experts that act as almost free consultants for them. And we have a full programmatic staff that's helping our startups gain access to investors, strategic partners, customers, the community in a lot of cases, or communities that we serve. And so everybody above the line is our staff. We have an internship program. That internship program is focused on our women-led companies and female entrepreneurship. I could give a whole talk about the dismal numbers when it comes to access to capital for our women-led companies. So we have some federal support, some private support to help us do that. And our internship program is focused on helping to battle some of those statistics. And then we have everybody below the line, which is our network. And so I think as JCC professionals, you understand that you don't just kind of do things in your own little world, that you rely on a network to help you serve your constituents. And then we run spaces. So on the bottom there, I mentioned the tech park. We've had that for 29 years. About 6,000 knowledge workers work within large companies such as Raytheon or IBM or Eurofins or Citibank. Down for the incubator, we run BSL-2 wet labs, so wet labs. We run dry labs, offices, conference rooms, all kinds of things for our startup companies. We opened up 2 years ago a biotech incubator up in Oro Valley, so just on the northern side of us. That's on the bottom left-hand screen there. That is about 60% biotech lab and very focused on those types of companies. We also have a climate sustainability incubator inside of the Biosphere 2. Raise your hand if you've heard of the Biosphere 2. Cool, awesome. If you haven't been there, make sure you go. We actually have an incubator inside of one of those bubbles right now, and the startups that we have in there are utilizing the Biosphere 2 to do all of their testing and demonstration. So a lot of it is like clean energy, arid lands and water, technologies like that. And then the brand new building there that you see at the top, that is our first building. We just put that up. It's our first building at our second tech park. It's called the Tech Park of the Bridges. That's off of 36th and Kino for those of you that are local. For those of you that are not, it's about 5 minutes south of the University of Arizona campus. And we are just now putting an incubator inside of that building as well. So we run a lot of spaces. We do a few other things. I promise I'm almost done with the marketing part. Hopefully this is, sort of interesting. Most notably for us, we run a whole bunch of programs for the Department of Energy. So if you look at a few of those dots around the nation, we happen to have Tucson on there. That's our operation. We recruit clean energy-based startups from around the nation. We train them, we put them through programming, and ultimately provide them with access to $3 million rounds of funding, non-dilutive capital, or money that they get to take in without giving a percentage of their company directly from the Department of Energy. And most notably for us recently is our international work. So we serve companies all around the world. In fact, of the 78 companies that I mentioned earlier, 8 of those companies are participating from another country in our programming. They're participating virtually. That's one way that we work with them. Another way that we work with international companies is we actually have funds that we fundraise for, and we will bring a cohort of companies from a given country to Tucson for a month. We'll provide them with a pretty intense amount of programming, access to the municipal leadership, and basically help them do something called customer discovery, which you're going to hear a lot about from me today. The reason that we do this work is all for economic development. So if we're really good at what we do, the companies that we serve stateside attract capital to their regions, they hire employees, they purchase infrastructure, they do all the great things that help an economy thrive. And on the international front, we do this work because we hope that when international companies have traction in their home markets and they're ready to make US market entry, which they're going to do anyway, we hope that we can show them that it can be done right here in Southern Arizona, and they don't necessarily have to go to some of the other regions that they only hear about when they're in their home countries. The third way that we'll work with international companies is exactly like the second, but we will work with a partner. So we'll either partner with another country's government. We did this with Costa Rica and Colombia most recently. A key partner of ours is the United States State Department, who sends us companies from all around the world. In fact, right now we're working with the State Department serving Ukrainian companies. So right here in Tucson, we have a handful of Ukrainian companies the State Department pulled out of the country, brought here. We're going to be serving them for 6 months. And then the hope is that we can grow those innovations, keep those people safe, and when it's safe to do so, plant them back in their country to help grow their economy. So that's why we do some of this international work. So what's a startup? I kind of defined startup earlier in our context: scalable company, novel technology, looking to have that hockey stick revenue projection. Typically, they're a temporary organization. Their job is to de-risk a technology, take it from the 10-yard line to the 40-yard line, and then be picked up by a larger company. So up in Oro Valley, for example, the reason why we have an incubator up there is because their primary employer is a company called Roche Tissue Diagnostics. You ever heard of Roche? There you go. Big multinational company. The only reason they're in Oro Valley is because there was a little startup that came out of the university that planted themselves in Oro Valley, and then Roche found that to be attractive, acquired the company, established the operation, and boom, that's your primary employer. So that's why we kind of do this work. But startup doesn't have to necessarily mean the definition that I just provided. In fact, many of you, I would consider, are entrepreneurs in a startup. If you are developing a new unit in your operation, you're a startup. If you're working on new programming, you're a startup. Many of us had to shutter our doors for a time period about 2 years ago and refigure out how to run our operations. Or, when we opened them back up, we had to figure out how to do it again, almost starting from scratch in some cases. Definitely a startup. You all run a combination of programming and spaces just like I do. And sometimes you have to do things a little bit different. And so while we have this definition of startup, I would consider everybody in this room an entrepreneur. And so we're going to go through a little bit of an exercise today to help you think about how you develop programming like our companies do. So I mentioned this roadmap earlier, right? 27 major big buckets of activity. They break down into like 5 or 6 sub-buckets, things with acronyms all over the place, terms that most of us don't understand. But ultimately, over those 2 years, they're working on quite a bit. 1/27th of the activity that our startups are conducting, as they're trying not to fail, because 90% of them will, is something called customer discovery. When these companies develop a new technology, typically what they have to do is provide a solution to a major problem that some customer segment is feeling. They're either relieving a pain or creating a gain. And this new technology, this new thing that's at the core of their company, was typically developed in a lab or in the minds of these founders. And if they don't go out and look into the marketplace, ask the right questions, they aren't going to make it. And so we're talking about even before the technology is done being developed, they can go through these exercises to understand what it is that their potential customers are feeling, how they pay, what their problems are, what they're trying to do to solve those problems already. And this is a key part of the success or failure of a startup company. So 1/27th of the work that we do, but pretty critical. And customer discovery, it's part of something called lean startup methodology, invented by this guy named Steve Blank. If you go and you look up lean startup methodology or Steve Blank, if you're like a startup nerd like I am, you can find his stuff all over YouTube. But one thing that he says, and I used to put a lot of quotes on these slides, I spared you and just put one. In a startup, no facts exist inside the building, only opinions. So in the context of our companies, that means that if they believe that their product is the best thing since sliced bread, if they don't go out and find out if that's the case before they launch it, they're probably going to fail. In the context of, let's say, JCC programming, if you're going to develop something new from scratch without going out and talking to your members, talking to the folks that pay you money, right, that attend your programming, that come to your building, you could be successful, but odds are you're going to be more successful if you go out and you find the information each and every time. That's what we're going to talk about. So charts, graphics, acronyms. In the startup world, we love this stuff. But in lean startup methodology, this starts with something called the business model canvas. Long gone are the days where if you're going to create a company, you sit down and you write a 30-page business plan. We do it like this now. It's a way of kind of describing how the company, or in the case of folks like you, your programming, is going to operate. Who are you going to serve? What value are you providing? How are you going to make money off of it? Things like that, right? It's what keeps us all going. So on the right-hand side is the marketplace view, and you can Google this too. It's a little bit of an eye chart on the screen here. Just Google business model canvas, you'll find all kinds. On the right-hand side is the marketplace view. So who are your customers, right? What are their archetypes? What matters to them? How do they pay? So down at the bottom is revenue streams. How are you going to make money off of them, right? Okay, which is fairly important in most operations. We're going to talk about the center and the left in just a second, but beforehand, I'm going to try to get this a little bit interactive. So we're going to invent some new programs this morning. I'm so thankful we're in a room with tables because I didn't know how I was going to do this till I got in the room, but you guys took care of me. Thank you. So at your table, we're going to take like 3 minutes, and like a true 3 minutes, not like a Josh 45 seconds. We're going to take a true 3 minutes around your table. First of all, if you don't know everybody, make sure that you do. And I want each table to create a new program for a JCC operation. Real quick, right? I'm going to develop this. Hold on, wait, don't go yet. Oh, wow, this is a great group. I like this. You guys are excited. So it could be, it's going to be a new after-school program, a new program focused on Jewish education. It's going to be a barbecue outside next to the pool, a new, whatever it might be. 3 minutes, ready, set, go. Let's bring it back. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. I have recruited Josh as a runner. He's not wearing the right shoes for it, but I've recruited Josh as a runner. I need any table out there. Somebody raise your hand, volunteer to grab a mic, and tell us what program that you've developed. I'm going to start calling. Oh, we got a hand right there, Josh. Okay. All right. So all I want to know is, what program have you developed? You might want to say your name and where you're from, too.
Okay. Hi, so I'm Jill. I'm from Albuquerque, JCC, sitting with our friends from Portland and Peninsula. So we came up with a welcome wagon. like a welcome wacom party or cocktail hour to introduce, and I just noticed my cohort is filming me.
It happens when you get a microphone sometimes.
So a way to engage community members that are new maybe to the overall outside community, partnering with realtors and synagogues, and I don't know, we didn't even say this one, but I don't know, maybe churches that don't have a facility like ours, so that we can invite them to come in and introduce them to the JCC and the programs and everything we have to offer. And depending on the size of your JCC, doing it 2 to 4 times a year.
Okay, that table did a lot of work. Right on. Round of applause. Yeah, okay. We got a volunteer right here. Of course, Mr. 5 Cups of Coffee. I knew you'd be raising your hand.
I've had 6 since you've spoke.
6
Okay.
now.
So we have the JCC Maccabi Masters Games, or for seniors. So Maccabi Games for seniors. It's the fastest growing demographic, and there's a need out there. So similar to for teens, same concept.
Ah, very good. Okay. I should have known Todd was at your table that you'd bring up Maccabi games somehow in the programming. Very good. I like it. For seniors, that'd probably be the one I'd participate in too, by the way. I'm not very athletic. Okay. What do we got?
I'm Lael. I'm at the Peninsula JCC, and my team already heard this idea yesterday, but we're seriously doing it. Doggy daycare. I don't have anything else to say about that.
She, like proverbial mic drop, but I'm glad that she didn't drop the microphone. Let's go with 2 more. 2 more volunteers. Okay, we got 1 and 2 right up here in the front too. All right, go for it.
Hi, I'm Randy from Minnesota, and with Boulder, Israel won the stage in the Tour de France, so we want to bring in the Israel cycling team and have them cycle from Minneapolis to Boulder.
Wow. I don't know how many miles that is, but it sounds much further than the Tour de France. All right, last one.
So we stole the barbecue at the pool. Thanks, Eric. We were gonna do it in the summers, but also on the off season, make it like a barbecue by the fire pit kind of thing with music, beer, wine, mocktails, juice, music, family food.
Wow, okay, comprehensive. I like that. Very good. Also, the second program that we've heard about that includes booze. So I don't know. You're at a conference, I get it. So just quickly, in 3 minutes, you came up with new programs. What was really nice is that all of them were different, so we got a bunch of good examples. We'll try to poke that corner of the room here in just a bit. So you've got your program now. Now I want you to think about your customer. So I'm going to give you another 3 minutes. Not right now. In a minute, I'm going to give you another 3 minutes. And I want you to not develop the program any further. I want you to think about who you're serving. So what are their archetypes? What matters to them? If it is a program in children and youth, are your customers parents? Are they looking for childcare, time away from their kids, development for their kids? Do they have a certain archetype in terms of the demographic? So do they make a certain amount of money? Do they fit inside of a certain age range? Try to think about who you're serving, not just general members, right? Because we have different types of customers at our JCCs. We have some customers that are here for athletics, for childcare, for Jewish programming, for art and culture. So try to think specifically, drill down, based on the program that you've developed, who are you serving? What is their archetype? 3 minutes. Go for it. All right, let's bring it back. We're going to bring it back. Okay. So, we're going to ask for some volunteers. Josh did not agree to it this time, but I'm just assuming he's okay with continuing his role as the runner. Let's get a table. If you did not share last time, tell us your program quickly. Tell me who your customer is. If you did share last time, remind us, and then tell me who your customer is. Here we go.
Okay, I'm Tiffany. Okay, I'm Tiffany from the Tucson JCC. Our program is having our staff be able to further their education by getting degrees, making it convenient so that they can get their degrees at the Tucson J or somewhere that's not far right after they get off of work. Our customers would be staff.
Okay, all right. Couple of comments here. First of all, she said Tucson JCC, and nobody clapped. I'm slowly but surely inflating Todd's ego. Now, what I would challenge you on, you did a good job. What I would challenge you on is staff, right? It's a pretty broad term. You've got staff that have varying levels of experience that work in different departments, that are, in different focus areas, different ages, care about different things. So when you think about staff, if you were to continue to develop this idea further, I would drill that down even more. And it's not necessarily who am I going to limit the program to, but who's going to be my early adopter? Who are we going to focus on first? But it was good. I like it. All right, let's get to the volunteer. Boom, right there.
Hi. Oh, good. Okay. Hi, I'm Kimberly from the Peninsula Jewish Community Center, and our table was a great brainstormer on a series of 3 solo performances, solo theatrical performances by Jewish artists. We thought that the audience, the customer, might be different. It might be the same for all. We have a general theater-going audience, and it could be the subscriber of the local theater where we'd actually mount the shows. But we also thought to have a la carte options, and we dug down deep on one that deals with the theme of diabetes, and we thought we're a full wellness center, so we thought going to the wellness community and our partners at PAMP, Palo Alto Medical Foundation, and health professionals was a good starting point for that particular show, and having a maybe post-show talk session afterwards to get the health community in.
So before you hand the mic back,
Yes.
your customer is, as succinctly as possible, who are you serving?
The general theater lovers,
Okay.
some of which we know are 60 plus from general subscribers from the theater, our arts and culturalists, and for this particular show, people in the health community and maybe those with or have loved ones with diabetes.
Cool. Okay, very good. Round of applause. I don't remember if I called for a round of applause on the first one, but we'll pretend that I did, and I'm sorry if I didn't. Okay. And so as you're thinking in that context about theater goers, other things that you might want to consider would be, where do they currently go to view options, right? How much do they normally pay? When do they go? Are they going in the evening? Are they going during the day? Do they exclusively go on the weekends? So you can kind of drill down that customer archetype even further. We'll go with 1 or 2 more. Did I have a volunteer? Josh is ahead of the game back there. Okay.
I'm Mary, and I'm from San Diego. And we're going to do a pickleball league, which will be geared towards adults, but since we're narrowing down, we're going to start with seniors. And their goal is to make it to the Maccabi Masters. And it's going to be divided in, like if you're new, you'll be like a 1A. If you're advanced, you'll be like a 3A, and it'll be league play, different JCCs. You can come watch it for a small fee. We're still working out some other details, but.
Well, I'd say that that's okay considering you've had a total of 6 minutes to plan the whole entire program and think of the customers. So in this case, your customer, if I was hearing correctly, would be seniors who play pickleball, right?
Well, it's going to be 18 and up, but since we need people to buy in first, the seniors are really into it, so we're going to start there.
Okay, cool. I like it. We'll do one more. Yeah, round of applause. Thank you. You guys are keeping me honest. One more in the back. Okay.
Okay, hi everyone. I'm Libby from the Tucson JCC with lovely, and a bunch of other wonderful staff from the West Coast. So, our idea, we kind of switched it up halfway through, was to create a speakeasy after hours in the J. Uh, to attract a young adult population that maybe once came to the JCC and wants to reminisce and have nostalgia in a new environment where they can meet new people.
Awesome. Okay.
I sure do.
I got distracted. I was going to poke around at the customer a little bit more, but I was just thinking, like, oh, how do you do a speakeasy in a JCC? Like, do you have to, like, we don't have basements here in Tucson, so, like, I'm like, side door. Okay, very good. So what you just did is kind of like the basis for what our startups are doing. If you're not thinking about the program and who you're directly trying to serve, a lot of us, when we're in our programmatic departments, we're thinking about, well, what's the mission of the department and how can I create a program that fits within the stated mission, right? And then we go off, we get creative, and we just go and we do it. But if you don't take a moment to sit down with your team, with yourself, and consider your customer, which could be members, it could be if you run a staff, it could be your own staff, such as this table over here. If you don't consider that customer as you're developing the program, you might be missing the mark. And there's a way to find out if you're right. We're going to pause on that for just a second because so I've spent a lot of time in Israel. You could probably clap for that too, maybe. Yeah, okay. So I spent 5 years giving tours as a part of Taglit, Birthright. So I would go every single year. And I was fortunate enough the last times that I was in Israel was doing this work, was exploring the startup culture there, which is really, really good. It's well backed by the government. There's a lot of technology transfer happening. The large tech companies in the area are involved. But there's one thing that I found when I was interacting with Israeli companies is that they were really, really good at this customer discovery piece. And I think that that is in part why that's, startup nation, right, Israel. And I think that's why when you get companies that approach the United States from a region like that, where this is just kind of ingrained in what they're doing in the startup world, they have a better chance at being successful. I believe, as an example of that, do we all use WhatsApp? Anybody use WhatsApp? Like half of you? Yeah, to get here from the airport. Israel, came out of Israel. So we're going to pause even further. We're not focusing on this today, but I do want to reference the rest of the business model canvas. So the left-hand side is the operations view, right? And there's like little video shorts on YouTube. If you, again, Steve Blank, Lean Startup Methodology, you can find out what these things mean. But that's like, what is all the internal stuff that we have to do to make this program happen? So we did that. Okay. And at the heart of it all, and I saved it for last, is the value proposition. The value proposition is why you exist. It's not features. It's not activities, right? So sometimes if you work with a software startup company, you're like, what is the value proposition that you provide? And they like go down this list of features that the software will do. I'm like, no, that's not the value proposition. Value proposition is that pain that you are relieving or that gain that you are creating for your customer or your member or your staff member, right? Your value proposition is exactly why you exist. And let's say that you're developing doggy daycare over here, and you have, everybody's like, yes, and you have, or a speakeasy, which, mind you, was the third example with booze involved, just putting it out there, which is odd for 10:06 in the morning. You might have multiple different customer segments. So if you're developing a doggy daycare, you might be able to drill down and look at maybe sometimes it's working professionals that need a place for their dogs. Maybe it's folks that are looking to engage with other dog lovers. Maybe it's people like me who have a Siberian Husky and he just needs to run around with other dogs because he's crazy. You might have different customers or customer segments, and each one of those customer segments has the potential for a different value proposition. What gain are you creating, or what pain are you relieving for the customer that you just thought about for the program that you invented in 3 minutes? So yeah, you guessed it. I'm going to give you another 3 minutes. And I want you to think hard about the value proposition. What gain are you creating? What pain are you relieving? What is the value of the program that you developed? And no, the value can't be booze. Okay, I'm just putting it out there. What are you creating or relieving? 3 minutes, go. And as you can tell as we're doing this, we're kind of compounding. We're building on our idea. We're making sure we're considering everything. So you started with a program. You had this idea. You formulated it at a table of other JCC professionals from around the nation. You identified who your customer's going to be. And now you've thought about the value that you're providing to the customer. And it's not always just as simple as we provide childcare, right? Like, what is the value that you're providing? So this is actually the hardest part of doing this. And so we'll get just a few. One more time, Josh, if you don't mind running around. We're getting his exercise in. He's going to be ready for the pickleball league. He's going to be ready for the senior Maccabi games. All right, we got a volunteer? Yep. You're going to remind us your program, your customer, and then tell us the value proposition.
Sally from Palo Alto. We are doing a gap year program in Israel, and we're seeing kids and parents as the customer because they always have to make those decisions together. And what we see the value proposition really is about relief. It's about addressing mental health and enabling, relieving the pressure of what's happened in these last number of years and just enabling kids to take a break before they move on.
Okay, very good. Round of applause. I would challenge you as well, just as I did with this table, when you say kids and parents, right? So, oh, okay, very good, right? So when you think about customer, usually the definition is whoever's paying you the money. So even if you're in a child care program, for example, I know that's not what you're doing, but even if you were in running a child care program, technically your customers are not always the kids. It's the parents, right? They have to decide to send their kids there and pay you money to run this program. Very good. Okay, another volunteer. Value proposition all the way in the back. You're getting your exercise in now, Josh.
I know Josh doesn't mind walking because I know he loves fitness. So we are mostly the LA JCC with a little sprinkle of the East Bay at this table. And we are working on opening a satellite camp program because that's also something that hopefully is really going to happen. So our customer is actually somebody who is very similar to our current JCamp customer, but they live in a geographical area that puts them too far. So our customer, our families, where both parents or the parent guardian works full-time. They need childcare in the summer. But our value proposition specifically for JCamp Santa Monica is that it is all of the same things we currently offer, a high-quality program, but the differentiator, the value proposition is Jewish in this space because there is none. So it's a high-quality Jewish summer camp experience that meets your childcare needs in a flexible setting.
Cool. All right, round of applause. Nailed it. Now, I'm adding comments, and I'm the upfront peanut gallery over here, and of course I don't know the specific conversations that you've had at your tables, right? But there was a piece in there that I heard, when I hear satellite campus, right? It might be also that your value proposition is that you are being able to provide a physical location with programming for those that are in maybe more rural areas, right? Who don't have the means or the time to get to whatever JCC you're at. Who knows, right? Let's do one more. Even if you've already spoken, you can. Do I have one more volunteer? All right. The hand went up like this, like, I guess. Remind us of the program, customer, and your value proposition.
Monica from the Tucson J. So we are doing a series of events for different target audiences with the booze.
Booze.
Pool, fire pits, get-together. So one of our target audiences are young adults that are single. So our value proposition is providing a space where they can meet each other and have activity that is not currently readily available in our area.
Very nicely put. Okay, round of applause. Take my money. Okay. So, the cool part about this portion of the lean startup methodology process, or developing a new program as a part of the JCC, is that you just did that at your tables. And everything that you just said you were going to do, who you were going to serve, the value that you were going to provide, all of that, it was just a guess, right? You did it at your tables. None of you are your own customers right now, except for maybe the one focusing on staff, but you just guessed, and that's completely okay. Because much like our entrepreneurs, when you're starting something brand new, if it truly is novel, then you're just guessing at this point. So when we have our entrepreneurs look at an activity like this, which this activity is always ongoing for our entrepreneurs and should always be ongoing for you, even if you've already developed the program, you should always be doing what we're about to talk about. At this point, it's just a guess. I think if I develop this program, that these people will show up to it, and I think that they'll show up to it because we provide this value. You don't really fully know. In this context, you have some knowledge, right? But if you're developing a new program or a satellite campus, or I assume you don't already have doggy daycare at your JCC, it's just a guess. And so the lean startup methodology process relies on you to take all of those guesses and go try to find the right answers. So this is, for example, a bit of an eye chart. I'll read some stuff to you. Maybe we can send the slides out after. Okay, very cool. This is Facebook's business model canvas. It's fairly simple. If they were to go through, which I assume that they did, the same exercise that you just went through, it would boil down to something as simple as this. So, over on the right-hand side, they list out 3 customer segments, and this truly has not changed all that much. But they've got internet users in yellow, they've got advertisers and marketers in blue, they've got developers in green. Pretty standard, right? Now, if you look at some of the color coding, and this is where I'm talking about, if you have multiple customers that you're serving, you could have multiple value propositions. For the internet users, connect with your friends, discover and learn, express yourself. Right? And if you now weave in the revenue, it's free. That's pretty accurate, right? I feel like I'm one of the only people that still uses Facebook and hasn't moved on to everything else. But that's me. I'm an internet user. I want to connect with my friends, discover and learn. I don't always express myself on Facebook, but that's okay. And I don't pay anything. Advertisers and marketers, they want reach, relevance, social context, and engagement. And developers are looking for personalized and social experiences, social distribution, and payments. Right? So this would be Facebook's business model canvas. And if Mark Zuckerberg and his founding team were to sit down and do exactly what you just did, it might start off looking like this. And then they go out and they test their hypothesis. How many of you have a science background? I know it's not like wow, okay, well, quite a few, okay. So it's very much a scientific experiment. You develop a hypothesis, you go out and you test it. And this is really where the rubber meets the road. Everything we just did was great and also gave you an opportunity to maybe engage with new people. But now, going out and figuring out, testing those hypotheses is what's most important. So, we're gonna do this again. One more time. I think it's only one more time. Who are you gonna go ask? Actually, we won't have to split up because it took me a while to get you back last time. We're running out of time. So who are you going to go ask, right? So now that you've identified who your customers are, you can go out and ask them if this is something that they might need. So you might go out to individuals that are members and are dog owners, or those that are dog owners that are not members, who knows, right? And ask them, hey, without saying, I'm opening up a new dog sitting place, or I'm opening a speakeasy. You might ask those potential customers, do you currently have a need for your dog to be watched during the day? Do you find that your dog is restless and needs some social interaction? Do you work 13 hours a day and wonder if the dog ran out of food halfway through or water? Do you currently have a dog door that lets them out so that you don't have to send a friend over to your house once a day at lunchtime to go let the dog out? Right? There's a ton of questions. If you got daycare for your dog, what are you currently paying? How far do you have to travel? There's like all these things that you can ask, but it starts with who you're going to ask. And this is hard sometimes, right? If we are the director of some unit or some department at a JCC, we should know, right? If I run an ECE program, I don't want to go out and talk to the parents and ask them what they want. They pay me to know what they want. Not true. And it doesn't have to be an awkward conversation. I mean, these things can be organic sometimes, right? So now we're going to talk about some of these tactics. We did that already. All right, so this is what's most important. If you developed a program at your table and you wanted to go out and talk to customers, I don't care if 4 of you own dogs, you're not asking each other. You're going to go out, you're going to ask the customer. You're going to get out of the building. It's kind of what the quote said at the beginning, right? It's really easy for us to have these kinds of conversations or to admit that we need to find out the information with people that are close to us or with our friends or with our family. It's sometimes difficult to bring yourself to go and have those conversations, ask those questions without pitching something of individuals who may or may not be your customers. And this is like the hardest part. When we sit down with startup companies, and we do this with the National Science Foundation as well, where the NSF will actually give our startups $50,000 to do this kind of work, to travel to conferences, to talk to their customers, to go where their customers are, to ask those questions. And we ask them, and they have to talk to 100 of them in like 3 weeks. And we ask them to list them up. Half of them are their friends and colleagues because they're used to talking to them about ideas like that. It's easy for you to circle around the table and come up with a program, figure out who the customer is, value proposition. But when you need to go out there and ask the customer, it's normally not yourself. So as an example, that's my mother. It's not my child. I don't know whose child that is. Those are my kids. Yeah. That's my mom. So let's say that I'm inventing a new toothbrush, right? And it's like the coolest whiz-bang toothbrush on the planet and like plays music and like delivers coffee in your mouth as it's brushing your teeth or something, just for you. And I want to go find out, let's say I've figured out who my customers are, and let's say my mother might even represent one. Am I going to go to my mom and ask her what she thinks about this toothbrush? No. Of course not. Because my mom's going to tell me that it's the coolest toothbrush in the world. She wants to order the first 20 of them. And I don't really have good data now. I need to get out of the building. I need to go find new customers. I need to go talk to the members. I need to go talk to the staff, whoever that might be. You don't need to talk internally at this point. You've already done that. Go out and ask the right questions of the people who could be paying you money, right? In the world of startups, that's what it's about. In your world, it might be something different. But in our world, we're going to go ask the questions of the people that are paying us money, not my mother and that random baby. So, some of the staff at the Tucson JCC. I swear I didn't plan that out. It just kind of happened. They got a version of this presentation a few weeks ago, and so they got to see this video. I'm not going to play it now because I did not get here early enough in the morning to test the audio. But confirmation bias. Do we know what that is? So normally, right now is where I'd play this video, which thoroughly explains confirmation bias. And of course, it's from the movie Dumb and Dumber, but I'm not. So basically, though, the synopsis of the video is that Jim Carrey is interested in this person, and he asks her if there's a chance that they'll ever be together. And she says, no. And he goes, well, what if it was like 1 in 100? It's like a 1 in 100 chance that we could ever be together. She's like, well, more like 1 in a million. And he turns to her and goes, so you're saying there's a chance? It's confirmation bias. Sometimes we're so into this program that we've developed, this thing that we've sunk our time into, we've tasked our staff with, that we only hear what we want to hear. And so when you go out and you talk about or you ask the right questions of your customers, and they are providing you with data, no, actually, the dog doesn't need that. We got that all figured out. If you hear that over and over and over and over again, sometimes it's easy for us to only hear what we want to hear. But this is your customer telling you, we don't need this. And so why would you take the time and resources and finances and put that into something if the customer's telling you no? Confirmation bias is a really, really hard trap to get over. Basically stating we only hear what we want to hear. And this is like where most of our startups, if they fail, this is where they fail, right here. They're like, yeah, well, I spent 20 years in a lab developing this new compound. Well, everybody's going to want it, right? And even if they're telling them no, they're like, well, I spent 20 years in the lab developing this new compound. Or I spent 6 minutes at a table developing this new program. Right? So confirmation bias is a serious trap. It's a trap for far more than just customer discovery and lean startup methodology. But when you're talking about bringing something to your members or to your staff, and you ask them these questions, and if they're not telling you what you want to hear, be careful that you don't manipulate the information that you're getting into making it what you want to hear. I really wish I could play the video. It's a cool video. I can technically. All right. So then you do something called interviewing. And we kind of previewed this a little bit earlier. But when you think about how you have the conversations, let's say you run an after-school program, and you're asking these questions when parents are picking kids up, right? Tell me about the last time you did blank. Show me how you currently do it. What was hard about that? How do you solve it now? Why are you still trying to find this solution for whatever it might be, right? Why, parents, are you, hiring a babysitter at $45 an hour so that you can go to dinner, right? Oh, because you like to go to dinner together and dates are important. Okay, is that good for you? Is that working out for you? $45 an hour. Bring somebody to your house. You have to clean your house so they don't get embarrassed. All that stuff. Those of you with kids, So you're looking for emotions, artifacts. You're looking for discomfort. You are not just getting in answers, but there are things that occur with our bodies, body language, that you can pick up on. And you can kind of see when you're poking at something, right? You're like, oh, okay, I got that. Notice the one thing that's not up here. It's not your solution or your program. In fact, the challenge here, there's a lot of challenges I've brought up, creating the value proposition, confirmation bias, all that stuff. But the challenge here is not pitching your thing. Like, how hard is it going to be for you to go out and talk to folks, your membership that likes booze, about your speakeasy, right? It's easy for you to be like, yeah, listen, we're going to have a side door. It's going to be really dark. We're going to have people in there with huge beards. They're going to make drinks right in front of you, and they're going to muddle stuff, right? That's a term. But you don't want to do that. You're asking questions without talking about what you're planning. because you don't want them to have any bias either. So you want to get good data. So I would normally have you guys split up again and figure out you know what? Let's do that. We're going to do it for 3 minutes. We got a little bit of time. I'm going to run it right to the edge. I'm sorry. So think about your program. We won't reconvene and ask about these things, but think about your program, think about your customer, think about the value you're providing. Now you're going out and you're asking them questions. What questions are you going to ask? And I think I'll bring up an example here for you as well. 3 minutes, go for it. That can be hard, right? I mean, it's pretty easy to come up with the first 2 or 3 questions, like, do you have a dog? Do you also have a job that requires you to be away from home? But sometimes diving in deeper and getting to the questions you really need to ask is a hard task. It's even more difficult when you start asking those questions and you have to do things like drill in deeper on something, right? You don't just have a list of 6 questions you're hoping to ask. You want to try to dig in. You really want to try to figure out what they're currently doing in that arena and how you might be able to capitalize on that and provide something that's even better for them. And you don't do that just by going down a list of questions. The hard part is not always just the question development. It is how are you going to drill down further? How are we going to use those basic conversational skills, but apply that to the information you're trying to receive as you're developing the program, right? I used software as an example before, and we have our startups working on this before the software is even done, because the information that they're going to get is going to help them to even create the certain feature sets or other things that might be in the software. So you do this inside of the building first, then you get outside of the building, you ask those questions, but when you're asking the questions, it can sometimes be hard to drill in deeper. So I think I have some hints. Okay, so number 2 over there is again pretty important, but you're going to see a theme here. So look for how they find programming now and why it's not good enough, right? Ask for more details. Be open-minded. No would you or will you questions, because now you're just kind of talking about your own idea again. Like, would you bring a dog to the JCC for doggy daycare? Cheating. So, here's some ones that I put up there as it relates to programming at the JCC, just to kind of get the creative juices flowing. Do you normally engage in programming outside of your normal interactions at the JCC? So do you other things with other organizations? Do you go elsewhere for pickleball? Is there another senior sports tournament that you frequent? Are you willing to pay for additional programming? What other things do you do to engage with the community? Why? How much does that cost? Do facilities matter to you? Or are you looking for programming? How do you make time decisions in your family? Who makes those decisions? This is pretty key, right? Because if you're running a child care program, oftentimes it's not always the kids that make the decision as to what they do with their time. If that were the case, my kids would not be at school right now. They'd be at home watching Pokemon. Yeah, I know, the one from the 90s that I used to watch. It takes my rectangle screen and makes it square. It's really cool. So you can have some assumptions behind this. It's like, will people look for or find your program? Do people need to do the things, own things, know things? Will people participate as expected? Will they keep attending? Will they pay for it? Will they switch or change their behavior? Right? Sometimes they might be participating in something that your JCC offers. Let's say you run a daycare at your JCC, but you have members who take their kids to other daycares in town. Why does that occur? And what information do you need to find out to see if you could switch them over to the JCC, if that matters to you? So a couple of hints. Trying to learn about, can you tell me the last time some of these things is okay. 1-on-1 is best. 2-on-1 is okay. 3-on-1 is intimidating. You're all very energetic people. If 3 of you got in front of a parent, for example, was like, please tell me about how you do things right now. I don't know, I would run. right? So some of these things are like basic and conversational. It's like what we teach our kids. But we can forget that sometimes when we're trying to gather data, especially if it's tied to, if we're emotionally tied to our programming. You know, in this industry right here, it's some of the most passionate people in the world at what they do. And sometimes that can get in the way when you're trying to find out information. So, a couple more. I don't necessarily need to do this for you. Now, one thing that we're all really, really good at, I could tell you, being on the board of the Tucson JCC, we're really good at this, and we get good information out. Oh, yeah, clap, yeah. Thank you. We're really good at surveying. We get really good data. We make some good inferences on that. But in the context of customer discovery, nope. You don't get a lot of good information. Follow-up information. You don't get to necessarily dig deeper or respond to the things that your people are telling you if you're doing it through a survey. Surveys have their purpose. I can tell you I'm a believer, especially with the surveys we do at the Tucson JCC for the staff. Thank you. I forget too. For the staff, for the board, for our members. But in this context, that's not what you want to do. So focus on the pain points, ask open-ended questions, ask why, ask about current activities, embrace bad news, don't give in to confirmation bias. Right, this stuff is not totally easy. And I put this example up there. So now you've made these assumptions, these hypotheses, you've gone out, you got information, bring that back to your team. What'd you learn? Right? We haven't even developed the program yet. We had an idea and a bunch of hypotheses around that idea. We haven't, gone in deep, right? So we're still learning. You do this with your team. What'd you learn? What'd you ask? What information came out from the members? What did they tell you they were looking for? Write it down. This helps you avoid some of the confirmation bias. Do it with your team. Hey, did you talk to a couple parents today? Did you ask them some of those questions? Oh yeah, what'd they say? So write it down or type it up. Not everybody writes things these days. So debrief is important. Now, if you're in an ECE program or an after-school program and parents are your customers or these types of parents in this segment, you're providing this value, and you have 3 or 4 members of your team going out and asking parents these questions and trying to find the data, did you find some patterns there? Oh man, like 80% of the people we asked don't care about this thing. Or they really want evening activities. We just keep hearing like, oh, we're just trying to go on dates, right? You might find some patterns there. And you can figure out, based on what you're writing, did we get the information that we wanted? If you sit down, you go out there, you went out there, you spoke to some of your members or customers or staff or whomever that might be, you bring it back, you sit down, you write down the data you got, and you're like, man, that didn't help us at all. Adjust. Ask different questions. Or maybe it was the wrong customer. And what's interesting about all of this is that it never stops. You should always be doing this. Startups, until they're acquired, are doing this for their customers, right? Every time you develop a new program, you can do something like this. If you have a program that used to have X amount of attendees and it's starting to go down, you can find out why. So you're always doing this. You're always going back to your business model canvas, right, if you're going to use that tool, and crossing off customers. Oh, no, they don't care. Oh, but they really care. Oh, man, I thought they really just wanted booze, but no, okay, these people care, and it's a speakeasy, but like what they really wanted was social interaction with other Jewish single people, right? And you just mark up that thing, and you're always going. You're always changing. You're always pivoting. Your customers are always changing. Certainly these days, how people engage with the JCC is different than how it was in 2019. And if the last time you went out and asked some questions like this was in 2019, I'll bet you it's different now. So this is a process that you are always going through. Hypothesize, test, assess and analyze, adjust and pivot. This is how you keep the programming fresh. This is how you make sure that you're providing something that members want to interact with. If it's an upsell, this is how you're making sure that you're providing something that people will actually pay for, that people will actually attend, that's valuable to them. Most of us, when we develop programs, again, we do it. How cool would it be if we just did this, right? Our mission here in this department is to provide childcare for kids. So we're going to do that. And now we're going to do that with art classes, right? Let's just do that. But if you're not going out there and figuring out truly who the customer is, value you're providing, asking them the right questions, they're telling you exactly what they want. It's hard to fail when you are literally providing what people have told you that they want before you provide it. And that's what this process is for our startups. This is how they can mitigate the risk of failure, though most of them still will. Sometimes this means that they fail fast and they fail forward, which is okay for you too, right? It's okay if you ran a program twice, did this, and realized it wasn't working. It's okay. You could go out and do this process again and create something else. But you're always going to make sure that it is with the customer in mind and you're providing value. I promise you that the results you're looking for, the outcomes that you're looking for out of whatever program and whatever department you're in, at whatever JCC you're at, and whatever city you're at, because you're not all located at the Tucson JCC, I can promise you that you will be able to find the outcomes that you're looking for. So I encourage you to take this back, use this. My contact information is there. You're more than welcome to send me photos of your business model canvases if you do that, or ask me questions, or if you're here in Tucson or ever travel back to Tucson, I'm happy to tour you around the tech park or any one of our incubator locations. But thank you so much for having me here today. Thank you. I grew up, the one thing I didn't mention is that I grew up in the JCC system from like ECE on up. And so, I give these presentations a lot, and I'm just so thrilled and excited that I was asked to do this with this group here today on the last day, and you stayed engaged, and he didn't have a heart attack. And so once again, thank you so much.